minute. No. So good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday. Really thrilled to have our three guests today on the show. This is Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, and joined with Jonathan Kirsting. He is Vice President of all things media and marketing for the Tech Council. And today we are actually recording from my house. He is with me, and it's exciting that the both of us have been vaccinated, even though we're taking our precautions. But we are very excited with our guests and the importance of the discussion today. So I want to thank, as always, Huntington Bank for the work that they do in supporting our work, doing this work each and every day, telling stories, highlighting issues, making sure that the tech community is actually cognizant of all the things that are impacting them, as well as what other people are doing. So today is pretty thrilling because we have Representative Donna Oberlander, and we're going to talk about Pennsylvania data center legislation. She'll get involved in that. We also have dear friend Jonathan Rosensen. He's a Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Expedient, and also Scott Gracie, Vice President of Operation at Etzel Engineer and Build, where he actually is leading the building of data centers. Also want to thank AT&T for being our sponsors in all things that are related to public policy and community affairs. They've been tremendous partners. They've helped this community in ways that many people might not even be familiar with, particularly during the onset and during COVID, making sure that people have access to what they need. And they were really leaders during that period of time. Then there's also a logo in there called 40 by 80. That's the longitude and latitude of Pittsburgh. And that is the Pittsburgh Tech Council 501c3. Okay, we've got to make sure we have our controls in place here. So we have muted your microphones, hopefully appropriately so, because I think I just heard something. But I want to welcome our three guests, and we're really going to dig into, the matter at hand and issues around data centers. And the first person I want to bring up is Representative Oberlander, and she is going to tell us a little bit about who she represents and the legislation that we're talking about right now. So Representative Oberlander, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about who you represent and the work that you do, as well as this bill. So someone needs, yeah, you're unmuted.
Yep.
Okay.
Very good. Well, thank you, Audrey, for the invitation to join the Pittsburgh Tech Council and the others on this call. I do represent the 63rd District in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. That's all of Clarion County, part of Armstrong County, and 2 townships in Forest County. And if you're not familiar with the 63rd District, it's very rural. And obviously during this COVID-19 year, we've found, we knew that we needed broadband. We knew that we were lacking in that infrastructure, but this year really made it crucial that we have that. That's not really the reason that I'm offering this bill, but it absolutely builds into the bill and the need for broadband. The bill that I'm offering is House Bill 952, and it would change our current tax credit for data centers to a sales tax exemption on the equipment that they use to actually store the data. It is a leveling of the playing field for Pennsylvania against its competitors in our neighboring states and across this nation, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this, and I want to thank you and applaud you. While you represent rural communities, which is a big part of Pennsylvania, what were some of the glaring issues that you had seen during these last 14 months?
So some of the glaring issues that we saw were literally, I think, seen across the Commonwealth, not just in my district, but the need to be able to work from home, have school from home, and we actually have areas that do not have broadband coverage at all, not even a little bit. We also saw if you did have broadband, that it wasn't capable of allowing you to do the things that I just mentioned. You couldn't have individuals on for school and for work. You couldn't you just couldn't operate. And so we had kiddos come home from college who were sitting in the parking lot at McDonald's trying to do their homework because you could catch the broadband. Well, they're sitting in the Sheetz parking lot because you can catch the broadband. That's no way to do school or work. And so we've been working very diligently, as many are, to really bring that up to speed. And the reason why this builds into that is that we know that we have the fiber backbone. It comes right through my community. It comes across our Commonwealth, and hopefully this will help to make the exit ramps for that service. So it's really a win-win in my opinion.
I think it's really crucial. The people who live remotely, remember, and as people think about working from home and working remotely, one of the things that is attractive to them in working in more rural areas is the fact that if there's access to broadband, they can really contribute to a lot of the beautiful parts of Pennsylvania that many of us don't think about often enough in terms of urban living. So thank you for heralding this. And so don't go away, because we're going to come back to, I want to jump to John Rosensen. I introduced him a moment ago. So if we could highlight John, thank you so much for joining us today. Our teams happen to be neighbors. There's, we're co-located in, Nova Place. And, we know your company well, but talk about Expedient. Let everyone know about Expedient, and maybe a little bit about the history of where, why Expedient is actually located in Nova Place.
Yeah, sure. I've been with the company since we had a different name back in the early 90s. So we're a Pittsburgh born and bred company, and we're a digital infrastructure company. So Expedient actually has 11 of its own data centers spread across the country, 2 of which are in Pittsburgh, and that's primarily because of growth. Originally, our first data center was based in Green Tree, and as we outgrew that facility, which was formerly owned by an enterprise company that moved out, we were looking for a place that would have the right conditions for a data center. And at the time, the former Allegheny Center, as Nova Place used to be called, represented all of those things, including, maybe most importantly, network connectivity to the rest of the world. In Pittsburgh, Nova Place is the hub of internet connection. So Expedient is a digital infrastructure provider, and we focus on providing cloud services, and we do that out of our own data centers.
But, data centers really, they're a pivotal part of the growing ecosystem in terms of tech. Sometimes, that when things are going great, we take it for granted, right? And, talk about how you really have supported the growth. Not just in companies, but the amount of data that people are processing right now.
Yeah, so and I really like to highlight that we are an infrastructure company. So think of us as a utility for computing, just as if you have utility for internet service or for water or cable television. Your servers and your data platform is a utility in the context of companies. So having digital infrastructure providers like Expedient in your city or your town is essential to digital transformation. This cultural change and data explosion that the world has been going through for the past couple of decades, that's being led now by this transformation to cloud services. So providing an on-ramp locally for businesses to cloud services that might even be delivered like software as a service, and we're using one right now, is critical to accelerating business.
Well, the thing is, you're also part of economic development strategy, so that the more we have your presence and the more that it's growing, is the more attractive this region becomes for people and that are building there tomorrow.
That's right, and we're grateful for the legislation such that Representative Oberlander is pursuing here to help attract more businesses of our type, because this is going to be a very high growth area. Data is only increasing, it's not declining.
Right. So now let's bring up, don't go away, either of you, but now I want to bring up Scott. Scott Scott Gracie, and we talked about Etzel a moment ago, but tell us about your company and how this fits into this jigsaw that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, so we're Etzel Engineer and Build. We are a design build contractor that specializes in high reliability. We've been in business for 15 plus years. Between 80 and 90% of our clients are repeat clients, and we've done work up and down the East Coast and as far west as Kansas City. We do ground build up construction for data centers, as well as fit outs of existing spaces for existing clients, as well as new clients. We also complete successful projects that are what we call to is kind of referring to as open heart surgery in active data centers. So we go into active data centers and we can replace key electrical components and key utility components like your electrical service systems, your UPSs, your air conditioning. We have a great team that works with us that develops creative solutions to those situations to where we can go in and we minimize the impact on the data center as well as the operators and the end users so that the uptime is maintained. And we understand that uptime and how important that is to the data center and the infrastructure. So that's a little bit about who we are. Ultimately, the bill in place here with trying to get some tax reductions in the state of Pennsylvania for opening up construction to data centers, you know, it's a huge impact for us and everywhere else. There's a great presence in the area for tradesmen, and it keeps those people working. It also has great impact on local markets. You know, once you build a data center, you have to support that data center, and obviously there are clients that the data center supports that travel into that area, so that builds infrastructure like hotels, restaurants, and those items as well.
Well, you're purchasing millions of dollars worth of equipment too.
That's correct. That's correct. I mean, when you look at the average cost of a data center, you know, you're about $1,000 to $1,200 a square foot. And, you know, here's another good example of where taxes can be a hindrance to data center growth.
Mm-hmm.
We have neighboring states, and John can attest to this, that they charge upwards of 8% use tax. And that use tax is charged against the labor of installation for everything associated to a data center. So there are states nearby that are costing a lot more money. You know, when you're looking at a $10 million a megawatt, you know, that's a significant investment that could just be going to taxes. And it has deterred companies from expanding in that region as well as even developing in that region. So tax incentives are huge as operators are concerned. You know, they're looking for those breaks. They're looking for reasons to come here. Other neighboring states offer great tax incentives, and hence the reason they're booming. You look at Manassas, Virginia, it's a booming area, and that's because they're enticing people to come there and build.
What about the other states? What about Ohio, New York? What about other places? Are they?
So Ohio is the one I'm referring to with the use tax. Ohio is kind of a deterrent more than it's really making it an avenue for development. New York, I don't know much about New York and what their incentives are. You know, again, John Rosensen may be able to speak a little bit more of that nature.
Yeah, well, I can tell you from a demand standpoint, we actually have 4 data centers in Ohio, 2 in Columbus and 2 in Cleveland, and taxes have been a quagmire.
Okay, all right, that's good. So we have some experts here. So Representative Oberlander, so obviously this is really important information and advocacy that's needed for your bill. Where does the legislation stand today? I mean, where, and you know, if people want to support this and they want to call, what can we do to be helpful?
That's a great question, Audrey. The bill actually passed out of the Finance Committee on Tuesday of this week. And so it comes to the floor when we come back the first week of May. I think that in terms of advocacy, calling your local representative, explaining to them the value of the program, the reason why this bill is necessary would be helpful. One of the hindrances that we've seen in the past and that we're trying to get over now is the fiscal note that may be attached to it. And so I'll just be right up front with you that if you were to only capture what we may lose in the sales tax, you're not looking at the entire picture. The reality is these are dollars that we will never capture in Pennsylvania if we do not have an open door and a welcoming policy for data centers. So the return on our loss of that sales tax far exceeds what it would cost. And so that's the message that I would love to have your folks send to your reps and to your senators, because that's the bottom line. This is an opportunity to create a family sustaining long-term jobs with so many other benefits. And so that would be my message.
So what's the sentiment right now? Can you give us the pulse in terms of this being passed? What's the sentiment?
I believe it's going to be passed, and I believe that it will be passed before June 30th in the budget. I think that it's got momentum. It has the support of not only the chambers and the industry, it has the support of the trades who will be building the centers. For the most part, I mean, they're the folks with the expertise in doing that, as Mr. Gracie had mentioned. And so I think it has a very good opportunity to pass this year.
Okay.
It has taken some time to get there because of the hurdle that I just mentioned.
Right.
But I think that we're starting to see movement on that as well.
So that doesn't mean we should let up. That's what I want to tell everyone. Just because that's the sentiment that Representative Oberlander is articulating, that does not mean we need to let up. It means that we need to continue to push ahead. So appreciate that. But so can we talk about green energy a little bit? I might pick on John and then go on to Scott as well as representative. I mean, what's the impact here, in terms of clean energy? Data centers use a lot of energy, and there's even a question in here about cryptocurrency and, some guidance around that. A lot of this does take energy, and the more data that we are creating that's compounding each and every day. What are you doing from the expedient standpoint?
I think the good news is that there are a lot of there are options for energy, generation sources, and solar is definitely one of them. From the expedient perspective, we have generally our centers are a couple of megawatts or below, and we've got lighting efficiency programs inside of our facilities. We're continuously upgrading the equipment that conditions the power to get our PUE number down over time, so that we're more efficiently using the energy that's being delivered. And everything in a data center, well, everything that's mechanical for the most part, uses electricity. And what a lot of people don't know is that equal amounts of energy are used to cool the IT equipment as are used to run the IT equipment. So getting that balance and manipulating the physical conditions inside the data center to make the most efficient use of the environmental conditioning equipment, the better. So while you can source the energy from multiple different sources and reduce your carbon footprint, you can buy carbon credits. A really significant thing that you can do is ensure that the facility is running as efficiently as possible. And there's a big incentive for businesses to do that because it's also a big cost savings to do so.
And the clean energy community really is an advocate of data centers because they can leverage all sorts of energy.
Yeah, I think one reason there, and Scott might chime in on this as well, when you can centralize the consumption, you can get a better control around it. And you can also do things like partner with the power company to handle, peak load and things like that. Scott, would you add anything to that?
Scott, yeah, you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can centralize the data centers in a certain area, it helps with the infrastructure that needs to support them. There's also, there's a lot of avenues for green energy. Even in Pennsylvania, solar can be very prevalent. Even though we see a lot of cloudy skies, that solar still generates power, and
Right.
that And when you're not consuming that power, you can sell that power back to the grid, which helps reduce the cost on the electrical side of things as well as wind. I mean, there's a ton of avenues. A lot of data centers are starting to explore geothermal for the cooling capacities. It's a little expensive on the upfront to put it in, but over the long haul, the data center, it certainly reduces the cost and consumption of those energy sources.
And I think a rule of thumb is, the bigger the data center, the more efficiency you can get from those different sources.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Representative, did you want to add anything in when we talk about energy?
Sure, I'm happy to. I will tell you that in some of the conversations that we've had, there have been companies who are very much willing to sign agreements with solar. They're willing to sign with hydro and nuclear. Those are other options. And then I see in the chat, there's also, as Mr. Gracie had mentioned, geothermal. Right. So the potential is very much green energy, but it also balances the need of continuing with the coal and gas, because at night the sun is not shining and the wind is not always blowing. So it's really a balanced approach.
So yeah, Jonathan, are there some questions in the chat? Can you see them? He's on.
Right now, it's just that people are building data centers because of their geothermal and so forth. So,
okay, good. So what else? We talked about the importance of public policy. That's one of our priorities at the Tech Council, to make sure that we're advocates and we're moving the agenda forward. This, to me, is an issue in terms of data centers really matter to our economic development across the region. There is someone in here, and I don't know if you can see it, Jonathan, because you're on your phone. They're talking, let's see, they're talking about, given the way that, this is from Justin, saying, given the way the pandemic highlighted the stark inequality that we talked about earlier, how can we both connect communities to broadband and pay for it, regardless of the availability of subsidy? And so what role can municipal broadband play in meeting those needs? Do you have any thoughts about that, Representative? And then I really want to talk about the importance of the building trade, Scott. We'll get back to that in a minute.
So I'm happy to address the question. And I think that every single community that I represent, the counties are involved, the local development districts are involved, the ISPs are involved, DCED and Sherry Collins, who I see is on the call, is involved. The reality is we're in a time when money doesn't seem to be the major hurdle that it used to be, because you find an ISP or a provider, but you didn't have the money to help build out, and so that doesn't seem to be quite the issue. It's really what's the best workable solution for you, because Pennsylvania is a very diverse Commonwealth, and what works in one rural area will not work in another rural area. So we really have to address the specifics. I think that we will see some direct benefit from the reverse auction that the FCC had. And I know in my particular area, Windstream and SpaceX were the winners. Our local development districts are providing some additional service. And I think that you'll see some of the mobile services start to step up to the plate. For example, T-Mobile came into my district. It hasn't been a big player before, but it's certainly stepping to the plate. So I think that it's a variety of solutions, and what we see is that people want it and they're willing to work to make it happen.
Yeah, there's lots and lots of solutions. I think that's really the takeaway from this, and lots of partners. So Scott, there's a lot of new jobs that are created. And talk about those jobs too. I don't want to label them a particular color, but there's lots of different jobs that are created through building these data centers.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, whenever a data center breaks ground, whether it's a ground up, build up, or even a fit out for that matter, there's a ton of jobs that it creates. It creates jobs all through all the trades industries. I mean, you'll have electricians, you'll have carpenters, you have fitters, and so on. All the tradesmen are there, but it also creates jobs, that some people may not necessarily consider. There's infrastructure that needs to support these data centers. So, again, the utility companies may have to build another substation. They may need to put new infrastructure in place to provide the power there for the data centers. But there's also connectivity in these data centers. So there's fiber that has to be built back out to be able to get out to the rural areas that maybe these people are working at, or these small mom and pop businesses are at, that are trying to backhaul their information to somebody like Expedient. The other thing that, a lot of times people don't really think about, but there is manufacturing that it creates as well. You have Universal Electric, which is Starline Busway. A lot of data centers use that material. That is made and manufactured right in Canonsburg. So again, if we can support data center growth in our market, or even across the state for that matter, through Harrisburg out to Philadelphia, if we make Pennsylvania an attractive spot to build in, all of those tradesmen go to work every day, and all of those Starline may be manufacturing a lot more bus locally for our market, as opposed to shipping it to other parts of the country or the world for that matter.
Right. So Jonathan tells me there's one last question he wants to sneak in before we wrap up.
Scott Harshman has a great question here. Wants to talk about how the fact that North Point is a great example as to how rural communities can compete, as it being a location for a server and data center. Anyone have any comments on that?
I think I think that the challenge with rural locations can be met if the connectivity can be brought to the locations. Typically, you have two concerns. Can the workers get there? The workers needed to operate the data center on a day-to-day basis, so they have the skills, and then the connectivity to the rest of the world. So making sure the fiber networks are there, and that they're diverse path, meaning that there's at least two, if not three or more pathways, because those wire lines are either on poles or in the ground. And as I'm sure you all have experienced before, if the cable goes out or the power goes out, 50% of the time it's because someone took out a pole. So to build really highly available and resilient data centers, you need that quality infrastructure. So while the land is available, and typically power as well, there will be a lift to get the power and the connectivity to the facilities.
Is there anything, Representative Oberlander, that you think that we overlooked in this conversation that you want to make a point about?
No, I think that you've covered it, but I did want to just address the rural versus urban versus suburban. I really think that House Bill 952 has the potential to really touch every corner and then some of Pennsylvania. And as the gentleman mentioned about Armstrong County, all we have to do is look at Butler County, really close to the Armstrong border with the Iron Mountain.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I mean, Iron Mountain is really in the middle of nowhere. And there are thousands of people that work there and have it's a data center. It's a huge data center. So I think that we've had some individuals who don't believe that this will be helpful to rural Pennsylvania. I disagree, and I think that that's why it has broad support and it has broad opportunity. So with that, I would just say I think you've covered it, and I again appreciate the time that you've given me today.
Thank you. Thank you for your leadership on this. We will follow up. We'll make sure that we reach out to the right people, share the information with our membership. I applaud you for taking the lead on this. This is something that really matters to all of us in Pennsylvania, not just in Pittsburgh and the immediate area. So thank you for your leadership there. And Scott, thank you for the work that you do. And hopefully we're going to keep you busy, and that Etzel will be, a leader in providing all the support that one needs to build data centers.
That would be great. We would highly look forward to it.
All right. And John Rosensen, thanks for being such a great friend to the tech community, being a leader, being at the helm of the expansion efforts, and, making this place who we are in terms of the support for all the companies that are here locally, the expansions that they've had, and just being an anchor in terms of building Pittsburgh.
Thanks, appreciate that. And thanks to you and Jonathan and Brian and your team for putting these together every day.
Thank you. Thank you. So everyone, if you want to know more about Expedient, easy to find, you want to know more about Etzel, rhymes with pretzel, you can find info about them. I know that they are accessible, and Representative Oberlander, easy to locate her, and you can reach out. And if you want more information about this bill, despite the sentiment, we still need to be active. So I am going to say that we're signing off on a Friday. And Jonathan, this is something near and dear to me. A lot of these are near and dear to me, but you know, Monday, I have a lot of sentiment because of the passing of my own mother, who was fluent in Yiddish. On Monday, we are having the lead for the Yiddish language from Duolingo. And they are going to be taught, it's a lost language, it's our 40th language. And they are going to talk about what they have done to bring the Yiddish language to Duolingo. So if you have any interest in Duolingo, any interest in Yiddish, or you just want to have a good time and want to find out what Duolingo is up to, we're having them on Monday. So I want to thank everyone. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your leadership who are on the call today. And stay safe, get vaccinated, and we'll see you on Monday.
Thank you.
That was good. Thank you.
Everyone.